Hello, in this video I'm going to be going from my Advent of Code 2023 Day 9 solution. So in this part we're given this input, which is just a bunch of numbers, and for each line of numbers we need to work out what the next number is going to be. So you might be able to see already, for the first one it is just 3, 6, 9, 12, 15 and then 18. And that can be represented like this. So the first difference are these 3's, and then the second difference are these 0's, and we know that when we get to 0, we can then work out the next one, because we go here, we add another 0, and then we say it's going to be 3 plus 0 is this value. And then we know 3 plus 0 is 3. And therefore 3 minus 3 is 0. And then we can say, we've got these 3's, and then we can say 15 plus 3 is going to be 18 here. So we find that the next value is 18. And then for all the test cases here, we get 28 and then 68. That gives us 114. So that is part 1. I'm going to copy this input, and then I'm going to paste it into Visual Studio Code, into my text file, and I'm just reading out the file here, and I've got two functions, part 1, part 2. Now what I can say, if I make this bigger actually, it's probably easier to see. Okay. So part 1 and part 2, I'm going to go through all the lines for let line of lines. We're going to have the let start nums equal line dot split at each space. Then we're going to map each number to be a number type. And then we're going to say let layers. That's just going to have start nums in first. Then we can say while 0 check, or while not 0 check, layers, which is going to be checking function 0 check. It's going to be checking if all the layer values are 0 at the bottom layer. So you can say if layers.length, or sorry, let's just say let valid equal true. And then we're going to try and make it not true, if it is not true, of course. Let item of layers.length minus 1, so the last layer. If item is not equal to 0, then we're going to say valid is false. Then we're going to break as well to end early, and then we can just return valid. So if it is valid, we're going to stop. But otherwise, we're going to go say let next layer equal an empty array. Then we can say for let I is 1, I is less than layers dot length, or layers, we need the layer above, so it's going to be layers dot length minus 1, and then we want to get I minus layers dot length minus 1, I minus 1, right? So, oh sorry, no, that's a different part. Layers dot length, okay, I've overcomplicated this a bit. We don't need all of this, but we can say layers dot length minus 1 dot length. So it's just the length of the items above, basically. Now we can say I++. Then we can say next layer dot push layers dot length -1, and then the index of that minus layers dot length -1 I -1, so the previous item. So we're comparing the two items and getting the difference. Finally, we can say layers dot push next layer, and then if we just log out what we get here, we're going to have to stringify it, but there you go. We see we get null, which is very interesting. Okay, let's just see what we get for start nums. This is because this is still day 8. Sorry about that. Okay, now we're getting the correct output here. So, we get these values and we can see we're getting all the layers down to 0. Okay, so now we need to add item to the layer. So you can say under here, we can just say layers dot length -1 dot push 0. So we're pushing 0 to the lowest layer where all the other zeros are. Then we can say for let I equals layers dot length -2. So the layer above that, we're going to go up until we get to our 0th layer. So I is greater or equal to 0, and then I minus. Then we can say let sum val equals layers I +1, layers I +1 here, dot length -1. Okay, so that's going to get the item that we're summing to, basically. And then we need to get this val. So let this val equals sum val plus layers I dot length -1. And this is going to just get the item horizontally next to us. Finally, we can say layers I dot push this val. Okay, and then we're gonna say here total plus equals layers 0 dot length -1. So this just gets the last item of layer 0. And we're adding it to the total variable, which we have not defined. There we go. Now we can return total. If we run this, we get 114. And if we look back here, that is what the test input said that we would get, 114. So now if we try it with our actual puzzle input, and then go back into our solution, and we paste this in and run it, we get this value. And it's 168 and ends in 095. So 168095, that is the correct answer. So next, it's very similar, but we just need to find the sum of all the previous values. So here we see we went the next values, here we're just getting the previous values. So for the most part, this is very similar, but there's a couple of changes that we need to make for part 2. So I'm just going to copy this into part 2. And then this all stays the same here, because this is just setting up the layers. But then this can also stay the same, because we're just adding 0 to a collection of zeros, so the order doesn't matter. But here we need to change a few things. So some val is going to be layers I plus 1 and then just 0 for the first item. And then this val is going to be, we need to do minus here. So it's going to be this minus that. But we also just need to select the 0th item here. Finally, we need to change this to a splice to insert it first. So we just say 0 is the start index, 0 is the delete count, and we just want to insert this val. Finally, we can just say total plus equals layers 0, 0. And then if we run this, we get 1136. That is the answer here. So that's how I did Advent of Code Day 9 of 2023.